Okay, so in the last video we had done the critical path and we had identified the tasks that were critical to complete the task, which were A, E, F, G and I, and that's because they all have a float of 0, and we found the minimum time to complete the task was 26 weeks. So that was completing we drew the network diagram, we found the tasks on the critical to the project, we found the minimum of time to complete the project, we found the start and finish time. So now we're up to allocation tasks, the minimum number of supervisors, given each supervisor can only supervise one task at a time, and recommend a week that the manager can come and visit the site. That requires us to draw a Gantt diagram. So here I am, here's my Gantt diagram already, and what I've got to do is I've got task A here, and task A takes between 0 and 5, so I'm going to colour in from 0 to 5. Now remember, the numbers, because I've done them on inside cells, are inside the cell, but they actually should be on the line. So that is the end of week 1, that is the end of week 2, that is the end of week 3, that is the end of week 4, that is the end of week 5. So later on, when we look at another task that doesn't necessarily make sense because the numbers are in the boxes, but actually they shouldn't be. They should be at the end of the box on the line. So what I'm doing is I'm colouring in, and in task B took between 0 and 6, but could take between 6 and 12. So rather than drawing a separate line for the Gantt diagram this time, I'm choosing to put it all on one line and show that this is where the task starts and finishes, but as long as it finishes by the end of this point, we're okay. So task C starts between 5 and 9, so 5 and 9, so that's my normal task, but it must be finished by 12. So that I can colour that bit in. Okay, so my first bit in each one, excuse me, is the time taken for the task at the earliest, and the orange bit is the latest. Okay, so task D, 5 to 8. So 5 to 8, but it has to be finished by 10. And task E is 5 to 6, and there's no float on that, so I don't have to worry. And task F is from 6 till 10. Task G was from 10 to 24, so task G is from 10 to 24, and task I was 24 to 26, so that's all correct. And then task H was 9 through to 21, so 9 through to 21, but as long as it's finished by 24. So those are my floats. Okay, so I've done my Gantt diagram. Now I come to try and allocate supervisors. So task A, I'm going to come down and I'm going to give supervisor 1. So that's task A. And then task E, I'm going to choose to colour that a slightly different colour. And then task F, and I'm only choosing to colour it a slightly different colour so it stands out. And then task G, and then task I. So I always put on my supervisor the tasks that are the critical path. Now I come to the thing where I've got to fiddle the rest around. So task B, I can start right from the start. So let's put task B in at the start. I also have task H that has to be finished by the end of task G. So I'm actually going to put it in there. I'm going to colour that one to be the same colour as task B, so that's task H. So I've left myself a little bit of slack at the end, and I think I've got enough play in my flow diagram to be able to get away with that. Now task C has to be finished before task H can start, so I can put task C in there, and that leaves me task D, which has not been allocated at all, and as long as it finishes after then I'm okay. So I have successfully managed to draw my Gantt chart and allocate supervisors to tasks. So the smallest number of supervisors I can have is 3. It would be nice if I could have squeezed these bits together and therefore fitted it all into 2, but actually that's not feasible because I can't do anything but have I at the end, and everything has to finish by the end of week 24 to enable I to finish by end of week 26. Okay, so that's that. So I would be saying that if I got a person to come in during week 6, remember week 6 is this week because that's week 6 and that's week 7. So that's week 6 would be here. So if I came in week 6, they'd be seeing task F, task C, and task D. So manager can visit week 6 and see tasks F, C, and D being completed. Okay, so I've done that. I've managed to fit it into 3 supervisors. So therefore, I'm coming towards the end of my task. The last thing I want to talk about today is discussion of the impact if project D takes longer than 3 weeks to complete. If I look at task D, if task D takes longer than 3 weeks to complete, it's fine as long as it doesn't take more than 5 weeks because I have this float. And as long as I'm done by the time I have to start task G, I think I'm all good. The problem comes if it takes 5 weeks more than 5 weeks, then I start hitting into a problem because then that's going to push out the maximum time. So task D can take longer than 3 weeks and not affect the total time of the project because it has a float of 2 weeks. If task D takes longer than 5 weeks, then each extra week is going to add extra time onto the whole project completion time. Okay? So we need to be careful that we understand that if task D takes longer than 5 weeks, it can take 3 weeks, it can take 4 weeks, it can take 5 weeks, that's fine. If it takes longer than 5 weeks, then it's going to impact on the rest of the project and delay the rest of the project. Okay, the last little point on here is the discussion of the impact of other delays significant enough to extend the project's minimum completion time, including implications for scheduling and supervisors. So that's that whole thing that I've managed to give a week between task C and H, and a week between task H and I. And if any of task B, C, or H get delayed by longer than 2 weeks, then it's going to affect the whole project. If task B and C both get delayed by a week, then it's okay. But if they both get delayed by a week or more, more than a week, then it's going to affect the whole project. So it's that whole discussion about what could happen. It might be that if you get more than, if they B and C get both delayed by 1 week, then you're going to have two critical paths, because you've got the whole first one's a critical path and the whole second one's a critical path. And if it goes longer than that, then maybe C can't go here, and you then have to reshuffle, and then there's an extra supervisor required, because tasks E, D, and C are all being completed at roughly the same time, and you can't get away from that. Okay, they will all concertina at some point. So it's that kind of discussion that you've got to be aware of. So that's the sort of discussion that you're going to have for excellence. Okay, so that's the end of that video. I hope these ones on critical paths have been helpful, and come back and check some of the other videos on the channel.